thank you for taking the time. Obviously, a fan of your music for decades now. Congratulations on Push to the Edge. But before I ask you about the album, how's your day
Yeah,
going so far?
it's been a good day. Yeah, I'm over in Germany doing a bit of recording with an old friend. So
Wow.
that's yeah. So
So when you're not busy with Purple, you're making solo music. When you're not busy with the solo music or Purple, you're recording on other people's albums still.
yeah.
So over 300 albums on your discography. It's got to be close to 400 now.
Well, I reckon it's many more than that. 700 or 800, I think. But
Wow. Okay. Well, again, congrats on this new album, Push to the Edge. Now,
yeah,
when I had the pleasure of interviewing you for One of a Kind, I know that you'd been writing it for about a year, but you did most of the tracking in 3 days. Were you
yeah.
able to spend more time on Push to the Edge's recording?
Yes, we spent 5 days.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
whether
it was a lot more leisurely.
well, when it's 5 days, does that mean that you're doing the basic tracks
No,
all at the
we got
same
all the
time?
backing tracks. We got all the backing tracks done in 5 days. Um, then COVID, that was 2019. Then COVID loomed, so the album was put on hold. It wasn't until 2021 that we finished everything off with the guitar overdubs and keyboards and the vocals.
Hmm.
And then 2022, Heike Friese in Hamburg mixed it,
Hmm.
and then it was done. But of course, the big problem was Simon McBride had joined Deep Purple, and we had to make an album with Deep Purple. So Push to the Edge got pushed to the edge.
Well, One of a Kind also had Simon on it.
Yeah,
How did you know Simon in the first place? Because I'm going to assume you kind of pushed him into Purple.
yeah. No, I'd heard. Well, I met him many years ago at a trade show when he was 15, and I was doing something for Moog, I think, and he was doing I don't know, but he was only 15. He was sensational, and but I got in touch with him about 10 years ago. I used to run a festival in my village called Blues and Soul, and I just called him up. I said, "Are you free on this day? Do you want to open up the show?" He said, "Well, I haven't got a band at the moment." I said, "Oh, I'll get you a band." So I found him a bass player and a drummer, and they rehearsed on the day. And he went on. He was just absolutely brilliant. And of course, he came on with us at the end um, when we played all the soul numbers. And he's a delightful guy, a very, very wonderful musician. So we formed this bond from then. So we've worked together quite a bit.
And the album also has Mitchell, who did really well on The Voice UK, and Carl,
Yeah,
who's played in Nazareth. So
yeah,
there's some heavy hitters on this record. Do
yeah.
they all live near you?
Um, well, I've known Carl for forever, and he used to live about 50 miles away from me, but he now lives in Austria. So he flew in to do the album from Austria.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't know Mitch. We just done one gig with Mitch when Carl couldn't do a gig. We got Mitch in instead, and I said I'll be doing an album, sometime soon. Would you do 3 songs for me?
Hmm.
We've got 3 songs we need lyrics for and somebody to sing them. So that's how I got Mitch involved. Yeah. I've worked with Dave Marks because we go on the road once a year. Simon and myself, we have a club band.
Hmm.
And it started, we'd hire a tour bus and go out on the road for 3 weeks playing clubs and small theatres and, like in the old days
Right.
kind of thing. And suddenly John Finnegan was the drummer, Dave Marks was the bass player. Suddenly I realised I had a band. It was really sounding good, so it was pretty easy to make the albums in one way.
So that's a very interesting point that you just mentioned about having a club band, because
Yeah.
obviously Purple is still doing arenas and headlining festivals. I saw you guys at Jones Beach here in New
Oh yeah.
York last summer. So where I'm going with this question is, do you have 3 or 4 different rigs? In other words, this is the arena rig, this is the club gig, this is the studio rig, because it sounds like you have a lot of equipment.
Yeah, yeah. We've got with Purple. We have two lots of gear, two rigs. So I've got two separate keyboard rigs. You know, and of course, which includes Hammond organs and Moog synthesizers and Soundcraft mixers, and it's all quite complicated.
Yeah.
But with the club band, I've got another Hammond that we use, and it's a smaller rig. It's only 3 or 4 keyboards instead of the usual 6 or 7, and I only take one Leslie cabinet on the road with me instead of 2. So it's a bit smaller. And there's a company we sometimes use that I'll hire a Hammond from. So we have 4 options, yeah.
So are you a big gear collector in general, or it's just whatever the gig requires?
Well, I'm not a collector as such. You know, I've got a lot of gear which I've just used over the years. I don't particularly buy it to make money on it. I buy it to use it. So I've got all the Hammonds I've got. 2 of them were made by a guy in New Haven called John Harbury, who bought A100s from old ladies when the old man dies, you know, so it doesn't get played anymore. And he cuts them down and he puts them into these kind of box that makes it more transportable. So I've got 3 of them. I've also got I've got a Hammond in my studio that I think belonged to Gary Wright when he was with Spooky Tooth. And that's probably the best Hammond I've got. And that never leaves home. That never leaves my studio.
When you're writing material like what we hear on Push to the Edge, does everything come from writing on keyboard, or are you a secret rhythm guitar player?
No, it always comes from getting together with the guys, you know. You know, with Push to the Edge, you know, I'd phoned Simon up and said, "You fancy doing another album with me?" He said, "Yeah, well, when do we start?" I said, "Tomorrow." So he flew over he lives in Belfast, near Belfast. So he flew over, and Carl flew over from Austria. And we had 2 or 3 days jamming with John Finnegan on drums. And then the next week we just went into a local studio in Cambridge and, you know, got to work, so to speak. You know, it was intense, but it was great fun.
When you were, sorry to interrupt you right there, but when you were making the album, did you know that it was going to come out on Ear Music all along?
Well, yeah, I told them that they asked me. I mean, One of a Kind did quite well in its own way, and they said, "This is going the right way. Do you want to? If you want to make another one, we'll finance it." So that's what happened. So I just took the chance. I just said, "Yeah, I'll do it." You know, you don't think much when you're a musician. You just say yes and no and rush blindly in.
Right. So before I called out what I thought was 300 albums on your discography, you think it's upwards of 700, and of course the McDonald's sessions and all that kind of stuff that you've done over the years.
I've done loads of sessions. Yeah.
Were there offers for you in the 80s to do more solo stuff? Because people are saying, "Hey, that guy played on Ozzy and Judas Priest and Whitesnake stuff." Was that leading to solo stuff?
As a keyboard player, you don't really have that kind of kudos. But I got an album deal for an album called K2 that I made. I got a deal from MCA. You know, we just did a few demos, had the songs I'd written, and we just took them around the record companies, and MCA in London liked it, and they just gave me a deal. You know, it wasn't big money. It was enough to, you know, hire a studio for 2 weeks and get some guys down and, you know, get my friends in. And it was all done and dusted. 2 weeks, and we mixed it in 3 days, I think.
So if I can throw a compliment / question right here, it doesn't sound like for you there was ever a sad period or a period where you couldn't get work.
There was a time in my life where things didn't go right, but we had a bit of with my family. My son was very ill. For 3 years, and it was pretty much of a nightmare. You know, in and out of hospital, and but he eventually recovered rather miraculously when it wasn't expected, and I was able to go back into the music business. And of course, Mike, Mike went back to school and went to college and did the thing, and then he came to work for Deep Purple as my keyboard tech for 2 weeks, and we just kept him on. He was so good at it, and now he's the production manager for Deep Purple, and he works with Rival Sons, and he works with all kinds of different.
I just had Jay from Rival Sons on my show a couple of weeks ago.
Did you?
Small world, yeah.
He's a great friend of ours. Yeah.
So another question I have, this is a compliment at you and not a Purple question per se. I love the part of the Purple show where you do the keyboard solo and a glass of wine magically appears and you get to enjoy that. Obviously, when you see somebody does that, they have comedic influences, but you don't usually think of Deep Purple as a funny band. Have you always been big into comedy?
Well, us English, we always like a good laugh, and if you can keep things light-hearted, we don't like to be serious, glum all the time, and this is heavy rock, got to be serious, there's a lighter side to life, and we like to bring that through. And that's just one part of it, yeah. I mean, my keyboard tech, Matthias, he dresses up. He loves doing it. I've seen him getting he puts the waiter gear on, and he comes, and it's a real bottle of wine. So we decided to change the act at one point in the tour. He said, should I be a doctor? I'll come on. And he came on dressed as a doctor with a stethoscope. It took me pulse and gave me what I thought was a glass of apple juice, but it was brandy. All right, so down in one. When I turned to go back to the organ, there was at least 3 of them there. I didn't know which one. So we went back to Matthias being a waiter and me drinking half a glass of wine. Yeah.
Great story. So back to Push to the Edge. You said that you're right now in Germany working on another recording project, but are there going to be tour dates or shows in support of Push to the Edge? I think
we're trying to get something together for September, yeah.
Wow.
A massive tour, but we'll be doing, European clubs, the circuit we've done before, and see where it takes us. You can't wish for too much in this business. You just got to take everything as it comes,
When you play in support of a record like that, is it a mix of solo stuff, or do you also play stuff from your discography with the other big albums and bands?
Well, we always put a few big songs in. Yeah, but we try to do the album, as much from the album as you can. I mean, the usual quota is you do 5 songs from the album, and the rest is just, if you got some hits, play your hits, But we had a thing, we were playing in Hamburg. There's an album come out. They recorded us playing in a club in Hamburg. Mm-hmm. And somebody in the audience shouted, "Play Child in Time, if you can." So we'd never played it before with a band. And I just went into it and just hoped I was doing the right thing. And it just went amazingly. It's moments like that you can do in a club or in a small theatre,
right,
that you can't do in a big arena, really. You've got to be a lot more on top of things,
So it doesn't sound like you're not on the road or not working very much these days. It sounds like it's the busiest you've ever been in your life right now.
Well, I said to the guys in Purple, we finished the tour in the middle of December, just before Christmas. Mm-hmm. And, I just raised a glass. We're all in the dressing room. I just raised a glass and said, "Guys, this has been the best 6 months of my professional life. We had a wonderful tour. We had a hit album. It went to #1 in so many countries, equals 1. We didn't expect it. And the reception was just great. And the band was playing as good as it had ever played. It just put everybody in a good mood. And we had a great crew and a great manager, new manager. Everything just was tickety-boo,
Yeah.
Well, and it isn't very often in the music business.
Yeah, I'm glad that you had that gratitude and that realization that that moment you realized that you were in the best of times. But a question in a different direction that I have is think I saw your first tour, one of your first tours. I was in Japan, and at that time in the like '06, something like that, Purple was playing. So I went, okay, I'm going to go see Purple in their motherland. And that was great. Now, when you joined the band, did you know that it was going to be a long-term thing, or is it just one tour?
No, I joined for 3 gigs. They phoned me up. They phoned me up and said, John's ill. Can you stand in for him for 3 gigs? So I did, and after 3 gigs, they said, "Oh, John's still ill." So I did this 6 week tour with them, and then John decided to leave the band, so they just asked me to join. So 3 gigs turned into 20 years plus.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
20 years plus, and now Simon has to be the new guy. So I bet it must have been a relief that Simon became the new guy in the band.
Yeah. Well, when I joined the band, Steve Morse went, "Ah, I'm not the new guy anymore." Of course, as soon as I got in the dressing room with the other guys, all we talk about is football. Being English, you just talk about your football team, and we were all jabbering away about it and having a good laugh. And Steve went, "I'm still the new guy." he,
Well,
did- he didn't know what we were all talking about. So I tried to educate Steve Morse about football, and he took a bit of an interest, but it wasn't. He didn't quite get it. No.
well, two quick questions, one related to that, and then I let you go. And the first one is, what is the football club that you're most loyal to?
Sunderland. I
Nice.
just put the T-shirt on at random, and I suddenly realised I got the football badge. Yeah, Sunderland AFC. It's my hometown, and I have a season ticket there, and I go up as often as I can to watch them. Work permitting.
And then the last question for you, what's the last concert that you went to for enjoyment and not because you were going to come on stage?
Ba- 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 ba. I, I I went to a concert in Sunderland. They've got a wonderful arts theatre there now, and the Northern Symphonia was playing Vivaldi's Four Seasons. So I went to see that. It was a packed house, 400 people. It was a wonderful concert. I really, it's a thrilling piece of music,
Hmm.
which I played when I worked with Uli John Roth. We used to do, we had a massive work called Vivaldi's Five Seasons. We wrote an extra one, and we used to do this extra season that he dreamed up. So that was a great concert to see. Yeah.
Don, thank you for the decades of great art. Hope to eventually see you live in the near future, whether it's
Yeah,
with Purple or as the Solars. But thank you for your time and really looking forward to what's next. Congrats on Push to the Edge.
I really appreciate it, and thanks for the good questions and the bonhomie. It's been a pleasure.
Paltrocast.
I'm assuming it's good evening for you. You're into the evening part of the day, whereas it's afternoon here in New York.
Yeah, it's 5 p.m. here.
There you
Yeah.
go. Well, thank you for taking the evening to speak with me. Is anyone allowed to call you Russ, or are you Russell to everybody these days?
No, I'm Russ usually. I mean, unless I'm in trouble, then I'm Russell. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, hey, congrats on this new album. It's very ambitious to go, here's the new material from Lockdown, and here's the classic hits that you've been listening to for decades. So,
Yeah.
when in the process of this release did you realize that you were also going to do the re-records?
Well, I'm always writing. So, I mean, the new album, the album of new songs, that was always going to be. To be honest, Darren, I've had so many people throughout the years say to me, "Why don't you record the songs that other people have had hits with?" And I said, "Well, I've done a few. I had Winning that Santana recorded years ago. Mine was out 4 years before his.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Since You've Been Gone by Rainbow and Head East, and Brian May did it as well. Did a great
Yeah.
version of it. That was on the same album as Winning, and I had that. That was a single by me 3 or 4 years before the others. There was a song on that same album called Just a Dream Away that Roger Daltrey recorded for a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So but people always said to me, why did it? And I thought, I've heard people say it so much. I thought now is a good time to make re-records of those songs, those songs that other people recorded, like the 2 songs by the girls from ABBA, even,
Mm-hmm.
I recorded I Know There's Something Going On for myself, actually, years ago. But I was delighted when she recorded it, for the
Sure. With Phil Collins producing it and
yeah,
playing
Phil
drums on
produced it as well.
it.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, so Frida's quite a good singer. I think she's a very good singer. So I was pleased to hear that.
So before we come back to all that, talking about the new record and the new material, it kicks off with Resurrection, which one of the things I love about your songwriting is that you can talk about supernatural themes, but don't come across as a religious person. In other words, you can do magic,
Yeah,
God gave rock and roll to you, but it's never a religious kind of thing. And I get that same kind of vibe with Resurrection, that
yeah,
not
that's it.
religious, but
No,
religious
no.
themes.
Well, it's ambiguous. You see, you can say that it's very much, you are my resurrection. But it's. I was thinking about love affair as well. The love affair of it's feeling down and somebody meets somebody, and what they used to call falling in love.
Mhm.
And so you're my resurrection. That was the idea. I mean, it's ambiguous, really, to be honest.
Right. So when in the process of making this new record did Resurrection come out? Because it's a very strong statement to lead off with.
Yeah, well, I wrote that with my friend Rowley Jones. It's in my band. He plays guitar as well. We both play guitar. So he he came over to write with me. We decided we're going to write something together, and he turned up
Mhm.
and he said, "It's got a great title, Resurrection." I said, "Yeah, I love it. I love it." So sat down, I sat at the piano and played those 3 chords, uh, which is the majority of the song, the same 3 chords: E minor, D, C, right the way through, and that's how the song came about.
Got it. So I believe this is your 10th studio album, or is this number 11?
I don't know. Probably, I don't know. It's 10 or 11.
10 or 11. So when you came up with the idea of, hey, I'm going to start recording during lockdown, how far into that process did you realize that this was an album and not just a creative release and a personal project?
I was writing all the time. I'm writing all the time, and when uh, I found some songs, some older songs, that I started at the start of the lockdown. I thought that would be good if I find a good mix on that one and that one, and I added um, soul music. I added that, played that on the piano. Um, yeah, so that's how that started. That's how that developed.
Got it.
You know,
And
yeah.
do you have
So,
aspirations to do another solo album?
oh yeah, I want to keep going, Darren. I just want to keep. I've never stopped. That's the
Right.
strange thing. I've always written. And when you find a passion, as I've said before, you find a passion, and the world makes sense. You get up every day. A lot of people get up every day, don't look forward to every day because they do something that they settle
Mhm.
for, and then they go through their lives getting up and thinking, "Oh, I wish I did something I loved." Yeah. But
Right.
many people find a passion, but not as many as if everybody found a passion, there would be no war. If I mean, when I say
Mhm.
a passion is really a passion that you want to get up and I think to get up every day and do something you love is just magic. The whole day I go in the studio in the morning and come out for lunch, and there's always something I've loved about that morning. Sort of usually something I've loved. Like find a good drum pattern that's really expressive and is
Mhm.
inspiring. Then you put a bass on and the keyboards or guitar, whatever, and it's it's great coming for lunch, and I feel blissful.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've mentioned the, sorry to rudely interrupt you there. You've mentioned the passion that you enjoy the writing and all that. But did you ever have a long period of writer's block or going, I'm going to walk away for a couple of years and not do this because you were burnt out?
No, I have been, I've had writer's block before, but you know, it was years ago. I can write a song now. I can write a song, find a good subject to write about. Usually a title, fun enough, a good title that's inspiring, and yeah, I can write a song. So I haven't had writer's block for a long, long time.
Hmm. So when I'm talking to big songwriters, and I'm calling you a big songwriter because every time I go to a Mets game and they win, they play your song New York Groove. You're watching TV and there's Bill and Ted, there's your song there. Your songs
Yeah.
pop up on a daily basis in my life, whether or not I want them to, they're going to. And in your case, what I'm curious about, your path is very different from most of the co-writers and songwriters I know, because most of them did not write the song solo. Most of them, even if they wrote it solo, the artist was in the room, so they got 50%, or in order for them to cut the song, they got 50%. In your case, did a lot of these cuts happen because you had a publisher pitching them?
No, the only things that were pitched, well, it came to me actually, but was the America's song "You Can Do Magic." That came to me from the record company. It came that time. It came through my manager, who said, you know, it was Rupert Perry, who was head of A&R, an Englishman in LA, said asked if I would write something for America, basically, and I did. I listened to their albums, and I found a sort of a kind of sympathetic track. The idea of sort of, I tried to make it very, very America, and I did the track myself at Abbey Road, at number 2 at Abbey Road, and brought the boys in, Dewey and Jerry, and that was a song that came from a record company. The others, I've always I've just written the songs for myself, basically, all sorts of songs. I mean, I've listened to all sorts of songs. I listen to soul, rock, country. I like tunes, and you know, if you listen to a lot of music, as I do, as I always have done, and I think they call it a Catholic taste. Yeah, I mean, I love all kinds of music, so I usually do it myself. You know, I usually do the bass, the drums, keyboards, backing vocals. You know.
Paltrocast.